Welcome to this Times Techies webinar. I'm Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis. The two of us will moderate the discussion. We hope you and your families are staying safe and doing well. Our discussion today is on building a circular economy for a sustainable future and how technology can play a role in this. And we are doing it in association with Capgemini. It's now almost universally acknowledged that the climate is changing, air quality is worsening, water resources are depleting, and valuable other natural resources are depleting too. A lot of it has to do with our consumption patterns, the kind of products we make, the manner in which we make them. Across governments, business, and social organizations today, people are discussing how we can make products that are more fully recyclable, how to monitor the entire process from manufacture to recycling. To discuss the circular economy, we have with us two seasoned professionals. We have with us Ananth CHANDRAMOULI. Ananth is the managing director of the India business unit at Capgemini. He also sits on the APAC management board of Capgemini. Ananth has more than 24 years of rich cross-functional experience in technology, consulting, delivery, and sales. Prior to joining Capgemini, Ananth was part of the leadership team at Infosys. Ananth has co-authored a seminal report for the Ministry of Power on the adoption of digital technology for distribution utilities, which culminated in a large reforms program funded by the Government of India. Welcome, Ananth.
Thank you, Sujit. Pleasure to be here.
We have with us Sandeep Bhatia. Sandeep is the Executive Vice President and Country Head at Capgemini in West India. His role involves strengthening the go-to-market strategy as well as readiness to serve customers using scale delivery options across centers in India, Dalian in China, Singapore, and Warsaw. He also supports the global go-to-market strategy for Capgemini's insight-driven enterprise offering. Before joining Capgemini in West India in 2019, Sandeep worked with Genpact and Liquid Hub, where he successfully led the merger of Anik Technology Services and Liquid Hub in 2016. Welcome, Sandeep.
Thanks, Shilpa. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Those of you viewing this can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Sujit and I will put them to Ananth and Sandeep. Sandeep and Ananth have a short presentation, and then we'll get into a discussion. Over to you, Ananth and Sandeep.
Thanks, Shilpa. And I think what I'll do is I'll try to demystify what circular economy means for us. And I know everyone has different connotations. And we thought that it would be good if we could go and sort of share what is our view and what we do about circular economy. And the other thing is, why is it important now? And I think the reason I wanted to bring it out as to why is the use of our resources is actually gone 3 times since 1970. And with the data we see, it will actually double by 2050. And if we continue at the same pace, we will need another planet resources to help us. So there is no sort of avoiding the circular economy. This take, make, waste cycle is not going to be long going. Okay, and I think that's the reason we've taken it very seriously at Capgemini. And how we define circular economy is to go through the full cycle and close the loop where we could leverage the value of whatever we use. So we're also trying to decouple the growth with the resource depletion. And I think it's a very interesting concept because it challenges you to design differently. It challenges you to keep the products and materials in use as long as possible, even if end of life is happening. You try to make sure that there is a process to recover the residual value out of it. I think it also talks about how we can regenerate some of this system from an enhanced value perspective. Renewables is a clear thing. How do we get into making sure that we leverage all pockets of these to come up with the right value enrichment in the end-of-life scenarios? And I think there are various ways. Technology is definitely a key enabler. Design for use is definitely a big one. And I think, again, to my point when I said that there is a lot of wastage in the cycle, how do you reduce waste? Like 1/3 of the food we make is wasted. 50% of it is linked to packaging. Okay, so the data we collect actually is very alarming that we ourselves have to control this as we move forward. We've also come up with a framework of reduce, reuse, redesign, repair, refurbish, return, and recycle. And you can see that what we're trying to do is look at all aspects of a value chain as we move from, say, take, make, waste, or take, make, consume production, and see what we could do different in each of these things. And there are a lot of use cases which have happened. I was very happy to see a startup in India, Fool, which leverages the flowers which are put on temples and they recycle it into incense sticks. The other one which is happening very interesting is Theli, a startup where we use plastics to create footwear. And clearly good example of good innovation coming through from Indian startups, which I think is very, very promising as we move to the next phase of this journey. What we're doing at Capgemini, and I think it's very interesting, Capgemini is very, very serious about sustainability as well as circular economy. We put a stick in the ground. We've said that we will do it ourselves. We will be neutral by 2025 from an emission perspective. We'll move to 100% renewals by 2025, but we'll also help our clients. And by doing that, what we said is we'll came up with net zero and CSR strategy. How do we monitor it? How do we look at sustainable products and services? And again, how do we leverage AI and data for sustainable IT? The interesting thing which has happened in COVID is everyone has spent lots and lots of time on IT, Zoom sessions, team sessions. The IT cost has led into a lot of global warming coming up. So how do you use products and IT systems which are designed to consume less of those emissions? And look at the full value chain to come up with awareness, alert, track, trace mechanisms which can be leveraged to enhance the ecosystem. I think I will pass on to Ananth now to talk about how is the Indian consumer thinking and acting on the circular economy. Ananth?
Thank you, Sandeep. Once again, thanks, Sujit and Shilpa. It's a pleasure to be here talking about a topic that is absolutely close to my heart. You could see some of the light flickers happening. It is one of those days in Bangalore where there is a, recurrent power cut, and that is the state of our affairs today. So apologies. Before we kind of go into the Indian consumers, viewpoint, let me kind of demystify the circular economy vis-a-vis sustainability, right? I know what is the subtle difference between these two. Circular economy initiatives that an enterprise undertakes, they all kind of contribute towards their sustainability goals. Whereas a sustainability initiative at large need not be circular in nature. For example, if I were to run my data center for my IT applications, right, I could actually decide to procure electricity from a renewable source. That contributes to my sustainable initiative, but that necessarily is not circular. Circular economy is a lot more deeper into the entire, it looks into the entire process of my product manufacturing, the entire value chain, starting from procurement of raw materials to the manufacturing, and then of course putting them in the consumer's hands, and then also closing the loop to ensure that the recycling of the end of life products happen to be kind of much more sustainable. So the circular economy kind of runs through the heart of the enterprise's manufacturing process, so to speak, and what we call as a regenerative design, which means that basically the entire process itself should be, from an energy and matter standpoint, should be self-sustainable. So basically what you take from Mother Earth, you give it back. That is the larger construct of circular economy. So with that, background in place, if we look at the next slide in terms of what the Indian consumers, how discerning they are compared to the global consumers. This is based on the survey that we did as part of our Capgemini Research Institute report on, circular economy. 8,000 consumers were interviewed. And out of them, a few of them were India-based consumers. As you could see, in the entire life cycle, from purchase to use to post-use, is not much of surprise. In the purchase and use phases, we are extremely discerning and frugal, right? I come from a middle-class family myself. How frugal we are in terms of buying and using any product, right? Starting from kind of reuse of clothes, for example, to repairing all our electronics or the kitchen appliances, right? We kind of use it to the maximum possible before we think of buying a new product, right? So in the purchase and use cycles, you see the Indian consumers are far more discerning relative to the global consumers. When it comes to the post-use phase, that's where I think probably we falter a bit. We don't have the right ability to segregate the waste and put it back through a recycling process for the raw materials to be consumed lesser comparatively, right? So I think that's a broad context of the Indian consumers. We are well aware of the frugal practices. We are well aware of what to purchase, when to purchase, how to increase the longevity of the products that we use. But the post-use phase is something that we need to improve upon. So having said that, when it comes to enterprise, which is the next slide, what journey should the enterprises take in terms of adopting circular economy, right? So as I always say, circular economy is not a single player game. If I were an enterprise, I cannot act on my own. The first and foremost thing is to kind of create an ecosystem of players, including my suppliers and also my consumers, government agencies, design think tanks. It's a long journey. It's a long journey for any enterprise to kind of go through this circular economy transition, right? The first and foremost is, of course, put that regenerative design principle at the heart of your enterprise process. That's extremely crucial, right? And that requires tremendous amount of focus. That requires a change in mindset of your employees, that they're going to kind of change the way of working, etc. Right? So that is the first and foremost principle. The second one, if you look at the bottom left, is the ability for you to excite the consumers. Okay, finally, the entire loop is not closed if the consumers are not there with you. And today with the kind of Diwali sale and your Thanksgiving sale, etc. happening, we only kind of promote the consumers to buy more and more. Interestingly, there was one company called Patagonia who is into the outdoor clothing. They are into the selling of outdoor clothing and gears. They, for a change, said, guys, think twice before buying. Okay, during one of the Thanksgiving Day sale or something like that. Similarly, there is another company called Allbirds, which basically kind of, they said, break the tradition, not the planet, kind of a campaign during one of the large sales. They said they increased the price rather than giving discounts, stating that, okay, I'm going to charge you $1 more, but I'll contribute that $1 towards environmental causes, right? So you got to really excite the consumers. You got to make them part of your circular economy game, right? That's extremely, extremely crucial. And the third example I could think of is the ecosystem part of it. Real Car, which is the recycled aluminum car program by Jaguar Land Rover. They joined hands with Novelis and also a couple of universities and think tanks based out of the UK to ensure that they infuse this circular economy principles in their entire life cycle. So ultimately, I think it's all about putting the pieces of the puzzle together. For that, you need to have a strategy in place. You need to have the KPIs in place. For example, IKEA, by 2030, they have actually promised that all their products will be circular. Okay, which means that everything, the raw materials will all be 100% recycled, which goes into their furnitures. Right, 100% of their product portfolio will be circular by 2030. That's how long the journey is. It's going to take about more than a decade for you to reach that phase. So one is the strategy, the KPIs to be put in place, the ecosystem of partners, including the suppliers and consumers on your side. And last but not the least, things are not complete unless you leverage technology as an enabler. Okay, there are enough number of technologies like blockchain, AI, ML, IoT, and robotics, which could aid enterprises in their journey of circular economy. So with that, I hand it to Sujit for having further conversation on this topic. Over to you, Sujit.
Thanks, Ananth. Sandeep, can you stop the presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, there's so much of that we could relate to. What Ananth said about Indians being a lot more frugal, absolutely. Some years ago, I remember I was with a family in the US, and something went wrong with their microwave, and they didn't even bother to check what could have gone wrong. Just it was straight junk it and buy something else. Here we would have tried to find out what went wrong, call a service guy and all of that.
But Sujit, interestingly, since you talk about an US example, this is probably even true today. 2 decades ago, when I was there in the US, this concept of garage sale during the summer. Okay, there is a lot more open-mindedness in terms of reuse. Okay, and that probably is not there in the DNA of Indians, isn't it? So I think there are a lot of things to learn from
each other,
one another across the world.
Okay, that's an interesting observation. I had not thought about that. Yeah, very true, very true. So, Sandeep, wanted to ask you this. Ananth mentioned it towards the end, but some detail on this. What is the role that technology can play in helping in this circular economy?
And I think the biggest value is we say that it's a take, make, waste cycle. Okay, what we are trying to do is we are trying to close loop to make sure that the components and products lose very less value during this use phase, design phase. And technologies such as robotics, sensors, machine learning, they help us bring higher efficiency and circularity in processing of materials. Like when you're designing an electrical product, you could use it. How can I reuse it? You mentioned microwaves. How can I make it like very modular so I can repair it quickly? Ananth mentioned blockchain, IoT, digital twins. I think they can help in track and trace, okay, which helps in value chain optimization. We can develop products as a service, which increases use, repair, again, the refurbishment part which mentioned. Then the augmented reality, and I think it's a very strong concept. So when you walk into a cosmetic stores, people try to apply, use, and there's a lot of waste which happens in the consumer testing. And now look at Sephora, which actually launched a virtual artist tool where people can go, they can select the cosmetic they want to put it, use it, see it, how it would look on their face without actually touching the real cosmetic. So see the technology, how it just enabled a small use case very effectively. So these are some of the new concepts coming in. So how do you test something without purchasing using AR, VR? Very interesting.
Okay. I just wanted to do a follow up on that. At the design stage itself, I remember we have I think it's a national rice cooker which we got. I think when we got married in 1993, it still works. Yes. We still use it to cook rice. It's now almost 30 years. I don't think products last any longer that much, do they? I mean, I don't know. Deliberately, people change the whole design concept to make them last less.
Yeah, I think it is also like Ananth was saying, the economy which is consumption based. You want people to buy more, you want people to consume more. But the initial designs which were made were very robust. They were trying to make sure that any part which gone in could be repaired. Like even if you look at the old scooters which are there, they had very good modular design where you could repair them quickly, you could replace them, and the end of life, even the products which were there were being used. And I take an example of textiles. 85% of the textiles end up in landfill. And in India, there is huge reuse, recycle, which happens on those textiles. You will remember that there were a system where you will give your clothes to get utensils. So that frugal mindset really helps in generating much more circular use cases.
But Sujit, in my view, to answer your question, is it something deliberate? I don't think enterprises can ever take such chances. I mean, they will become absolutely irrelevant, right? They have to make things work in terms of a lot of newer models like product as a service. There are a whole lot of opportunities for enterprises today. Okay, I don't think anyone can make the mistake of having a design that is deliberately reducing the life of any product whatsoever.
Okay. Shilpa?
Yeah, Ananth, e-commerce is one of the fastest growing industries in India, with social commerce being the next big thing. While the sector is empowering small businesses like never before, it also brings a lot of non-recyclable waste in terms of packaging. Is there a workaround?
Look, Shilpa, I think it's a very interesting question. But first of all, e-commerce, let's admit, it has been a great savior amidst the pandemic, right? It has got the, kind of really brought out the millennials in each one of us, right? The mindset and the preferences to buy, everything, it has changed. So, absolutely, thankful to them. Second is they also have enabled almost every other large e-commerce player. They also have enabled refurbished market, within their ecosystem, especially the electronic products, etc. You could see pre-used sections, right? So, I think they are doing a phenomenal job. That itself adds to the larger context of circular economy, right? So they are contributing to the circular economy for sure. However, from a packaging material standpoint, yes, I completely admit there is a lot of room for improvement. Okay, so I see two ways out. Okay, one is no packaging at all. Okay, I'm extremely happy to receive my fruits and vegetables and groceries from nearby, through an e-commerce player. They don't do any additional packaging. So very happy. The guy brings it in a nice bag and delivers each one, every product by hand. Okay, I mean, there is a trust that needs to be built with the consumer at the end of the day, right? So that's a no packaging concept. The second part, which, okay, I mean, of course, you cannot do this for all the products. This is where the ecosystem, concept again comes into play. There are players like Repack and Line Loop who are doing a phenomenal job in terms of creating a reusing of packaging material itself. So I think there is a reimagining of packaging industry itself going on because of the circular economy, right? For example, Line Loop uses certain, the reusable packaging material that they have, of course, different forms and shapes and form factors, etc. They have used recycled vinyl and recycled cotton. Okay, and then the same packaging material can be used, I think, more than 200 times. But the most important part is, again, taking consumer friendliness and consumer convenience into, that needs to be taken into consideration. The ability for me to kind of quickly, put that back in a box that goes back to the central warehouse location for the packaging material to be reused, right? So I think there are good startups that are actually kind of dabbling with this kind of reusable packaging material itself. And we still have a long way to go. The e-commerce companies are better off. I think their core competence lies in bringing, crores of products, SKUs to the consumer. They should partner with startups like these to bring in the entire circular economy in motion, including the recycled packaged material.
A lot of the packaging is not recyclable, you're saying, is it?
A lot of them is not recyclable because of the inherent, for example, I think that the air pillows that we get, in the cardboard box, which kind of protects the, maybe a sensitive electronic product that you have bought. I believe they're all single-use plastics, right? So how do you kind of, I don't know of any technology that has kind of overcome that kind of a cushion that needs to be provided for delivering certain products. But at least, if you, something is better than nothing. If you have a start where you use the outside cotton, for example, as a reused packaging material, it means that the entire package is actually kind of goes back, Sujit, right? It goes back to a central warehouse, and it can be immediately, other products can be used for, to be packaged and sent to another consumer. So it's about 200 to 250 times reuse of the same material. think of it as a simple envelope, right? Envelope, could be kind of reused, right? And extend that to slightly larger form factors, etc. That is where the world is moving towards.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, Ananth, morally, ethically, of course, absolutely. I mean, we need to do this. Economically, what? How do we convince companies that there are economic benefits in moving to a circular economy?
That's that's $1 million question, Sujit. I look at it from a long-term perspective. First of all, I think the enterprises should look at it from a long-term standpoint. Two parts to it. One is the economic benefits that accrue to the environment, okay, environment and society. The second is what's in it for me as an enterprise. Okay, so there are these two parts. I don't think there is any question about the business case on the former. Okay, if you take a look at three aspects of lesser use of raw materials, because you get the entire loop is closed, most of your inputs are recycled raw materials, etc. Right? Again, Sandeep mentioned about textile. The amount of synthetic fiber that is needed, which in turn uses fossil fuel, is huge. And apparently, I think the entire textile industry uses, if I'm correct, about 100 billion cubic meters of water per year. Right? So all these things need to be reduced. Okay, so very clearly circular economy comes into play and there is economic benefit on this front. Secondly, let us talk about, in the backdrop of COP26, climate change and the greenhouse gas emissions. If food waste was a separate industry, apparently they will be third largest greenhouse gas emitter behind China and the US. Right? So again, coming back to the textile industry, if you and I were to wear this jacket, maybe twice the time, number of average times of usage, right? If I were to throw this away in 1 year and I rather use it for one more year, the GHG emissions come down by 50%. So that is the second aspect. Third is the human health and environment hazards. Look at the waste management. Waste management itself is a very strange term because, in the circular economy, the intent is to eliminate waste. The moment waste goes into your waste bin, I think there starts the problem. And there is a lot of incineration, etc., that happens around my apartment complex in Bangalore. The amount of health hazard, I kind of close all the windows and doors the moment the smoke starts coming, right? So the amount of impact that it has is enormous on the environment and the health. So I'm very convinced, I think everybody is convinced that there are economic benefits of circular economy when it comes to the environment and society at large. Now, coming to enterprise, if I were a CEO, if I were to look at, okay, show me the ROI in the next 3 months or 6 months, if I were to run this as a project, I think I'll be absolutely mistaken. Okay, I think the opportunity cost of not doing this, I as a CEO as well as a company will be absolutely irrelevant if I don't do this. Consumers are discerning. Okay, it's not probably coming out because they are not well informed yet. They don't have the choices yet. But people are looking at it. I'm happy with an e-commerce service provider who is actually delivering my grocery without additional packaging, as I told. I stopped buying from somebody else, right? So I think consumers are discerning. So if enterprises don't act on it now, it is at their own peril. Okay, so for them, there is a very clear long-term economic benefit. It's an absolute imperative for their survival. Okay, so it's not only a moral obligation and ethical obligation. It makes immense economic sense also for the enterprises to embrace circular economy.
Good to hear that, Shilpa.
Yeah, Sandeep, on the same note, what would the elevator pitch to the CEO of a large corporation be to convince him or her to switch to circular economy and benefit from it?
And I think Ananth mentioned some of it, but I think the biggest thing is there's no other planet. We have only one planet, Earth, where we have to survive and make sure that whatever resources has been given to Mother Earth by us, to us, are recycled, reused, and the value is ensured. Ananth mentioned about consumer demand. I think being a good corporate citizen, getting all stakeholders involved. But I can tell you, the consumers are now, to Anand's point, very discerning. I know of a brand in Germany, which actually shows you the complete value chain from where the cotton was grown, what was used as a thing, how was the cotton taken off, how was it produced, how is the cloth and everything. And that's selling because the customers want to be associated with something which they can relate to and also feel good about contributing to this circular economy. I think that's a big value proposition, and a lot of CEOs have started relating to it. I think there's a lot of talk. Gates Foundation did a big study for Breakthrough Group, and in the end, it came up that if we associate ourselves to these causes, it also generates a lot of jobs. It's not just about the Mother Earth sustainability, greenhouse emission reduction, but it's also about the new jobs which will get created as part of this. So clearly a win-win, both economically as well as for the Earth economy.
Ananth, power is going off on my side as well.
I'm not alone, Sujit. Thank you.
Alone at all.
Crossing fingers also.
But Sandeep, staying on that topic, at the moment, it looks like consumers interested in sustainable practices are the financially well-off ones, those in metro cities and all that. How do we bring in the next set of consumers into the circular economy?
So, Sujit, you'll be surprised. I think when we think about consumer, we think about tier 1 cities and say that these are well-off customers. They think about it. But as soon as you start going towards tier 2, tier 3, even our villages, I think India is blessed to have that Jaguar mindset. Okay, I'm told of that story when the elder brother clothes goes to the younger one, and then in the end they became like mopping clothes, and then they still get used end of life. Okay, and I think that mindset has really helped. I still remember when I was growing up, there was a repair shop next to me where I could go in and get the minor repairs done. So recycling or refurbishment was happening. So anything like furniture, fashion, goods, shoes, everything was getting repaired. Okay, to your example, a microwave doesn't working means you go and buy a new one. We were always thinking about how can we drive more value out of a product. So I think that's a great thing. What we really need to do is that how can we now take these practices and ingrain them for a larger scale use? Because India is actually blessed to have that Jugaad mindset. Let me put it like that.
So Sujit, just to go back to your question, I think in the metro cities, given the wide array of people, I would probably tend to think the metros are probably worse off than the other way around. I think as Sandeep said, I think the tier 2, tier 3, there is an inherent the frugal mindset that continues to kick in, whereas here again there is a huge inequality. Bangalore, I'm sure you know about few environment friendly homes. There is a builder that actually kind of pride themselves in building completely sustainable energy generated within the complex, etc. Right, but they are all far and few between. I mean, rest of the places, I think unfortunately it's all garbage strewn all over the place, right? So I think probably our tier 2, tier 3 compatriots are better off in terms of their day-to-day circular economy way of living, so to speak, compared to the metro cities. That's my opinion.
Okay. Shilpa?
Ananth, there are also large stakeholders within significant investments in the linear economy. For example, the non-renewable energy fuel companies. How can circular economy overcome these hurdles?
Yeah, very, very interesting question, Shilpa. If I think about the seven sisters, the famous or infamous now oil companies, right? They are really kind of running helter-skelter. They are already seeing the writing on the wall, okay, very clearly. And they have to adapt to new business models. There is no other choice. Okay, let me take an example that is closer to Cap. Total is a French oil major, one of the seven sisters, right? They have just rebranded themselves completely. They call themselves Total Energies. Okay, and you could see all the new logos, etc. But the more important point is their 2030 vision. They are going to transform themselves 20% of their product mix is going to be from renewable. They're going to, they're going to be into solar, wind, and other renewable projects. Okay, along with biomass and hydrogen. That is 20%. Their oil product mix is going to be 30% only, right, by 2030. So an oil and gas company, kind of bringing that product mix down to 30%. And the rest 50%, what they call as the energy of transition, which is gas, okay, relatively probably benign compared to oil maybe, right? So that's going to be their product mix. That is one aspect of it. Second is almost all the oil companies, they are getting into this electric vehicle charging station bandwagon, right? Especially the oil retail companies who have that space, the petrol pumps, etc. They are going to kind of develop as EV charging station zones, right? And they have that, right distribution setup. They are going to make use of that given the automotive industry disruption that we see around us happening, right? So that is a second adjacency business that they are going to get into. For them, from a core product standpoint, it's still going to be linear economy. You can never put back an oil and gas and back to Mother Earth. No way, right? So that's going to be linear economy. What are they going to do, or what are they doing? I think there is a larger sustainability KPI or goal that they are developing. Almost all the companies are doing that. A couple of examples again is, apart from buying carbon credits for all the bad that you're doing, it is like, we going to a temple and, donating, money to say that, okay, pardon me of all my sins. Okay, that is the carbon credit buying. But apart from that, there is carbon storage also, that is kind of being adopted by the oil and gas companies, right? So to kind of summarize, I think three things. One is, changing their product mix very clearly. That is one strategy. Second is getting into something, an adjacent business avenue, which probably originally they would not have even thought of, but because there are a lot of other things happening around them in other industries, they are able to get into that. And the third is, focusing more on sustainability initiatives, not necessarily circular economy, because their product is part of the linear economy. And again, companies like Total Energies, what they are saying is the entire electricity usage for their operations across all their global setup will be through renewable electricity. That's a good step. So I think, yeah, this industry requires, they have been shaken up very, very clearly. I think every other linear economy industry is going to be shaken up. They are going to be asked by consumers. They're going to be asked by regulators. They are going to be asked by their own consciousness to kind of change the way they actually work.
Okay. Interesting that they're changing. So there's this question from Anil Kumar in the audience. What are the industries and categories that can make a big impact in terms of circular economy? Can one of you, industries and categories can make a big impact? Is there something like that?
See, I think I'll probably take a first shot at it. I think circular economy is a principle cutting across all industries, across suppliers, manufacturers, and consumers, because the loop isn't closed without the consumer participation. So I don't think this is any industry specific thing, be it consumer products or electronics, equipment manufacturer, any manufacturer, automotive, life sciences. Okay, I think everybody has a role to play. I think this is going to be a core for almost all the industries. Those who are predominantly in products, they need to start thinking about business models like product as a service. Okay, sharing economy. How do you kind of improve the longevity of their products, right? There are a whole lot of business models that are kind of coming in. So I don't think it is an industry specific question. Of course, even when you talk about a hospitality kind of a services industry, I mean, the other day I was in a 7-star hotel. I was wondering about the food waste. How do they kind of, and of course I was with the CEO of the company, and he was explaining to me as to how they manage and ensure that there is as minimal food waste as possible. Or even if something is left on the plate by the consumers, how does it kind of get used and get converted to a biomass, biofuel, right? So I don't think this is kind of a single industry problem. This is actually kind of a global problem where each and every one of us have to contribute.
And
Okay.
Sujit, if I may add, I think we consumers play a big role in changing that attitude. And I think lot of corporates are going out and putting a stick in the ground. Okay, like some of the cola manufacturers, they pay you back when you help them recycle the aluminum can. So how do you foster that? Then there is a big program on buyback, which Apple does and other retailers do, which just creates awareness. It's not pertinent to one area, but I think everyone has been talking about e-waste and awareness and all the stuff. But shockingly, only 17% of e-waste is actually being recycled or collected. Okay, everything else is going into landfills or to shops where the products are being broken up. Even if you look at auto, the glues which are being used to put the batteries, there's no way to take the components out. Okay, so how do you change that behavior? I think it all depends upon us making that choice decision that we will buy with corporates who promote circular economy or ecosystems.
Okay. Shilpa?
Yeah. Then coming to you, apart from the large corporates, what are the other challenges does a circular economy face?
So, Shilpa, in my view, circular economy is not a single player game, right? So enterprises or corporates, that is only one aspect. It has to be an ecosystem game. And I'll pick the same, a little bit elaborate on the example that I mentioned earlier. Jaguar, Land Rovers, Real Car, which is a recycled aluminum car program. I think it's almost a decade old. The intent was to create a lighter vehicle, which of course aids in better performance and also better, the fuel related aspects, right? So it's good for the environment basically, right? But this requires aluminum itself. Manufacturing is very, very energy intensive. So as part of this entire initial design, circular design concept, they wanted to do the procurement of aluminum through, which is recycled aluminum. But recycled aluminum, again, a car manufacturer alone cannot do, because you need to, first of all, source scrap aluminum. It has to go to a manufacturer. And by the way, recycled aluminum energy usage is 95% less compared to the primary aluminum that kind of gets created from the ore, right? So that is the kind of a difference. And hence, that was a great idea. But they had to join hands with novelists. They had to join hands with the university. They had to join hands with a think tank who looked at the entire process, because it was a new, concept approach. And this ecosystem had to come together to make it happen. The partner had to invest in a new recycled aluminum manufacturing facility, which is very different from a primary aluminum manufacturing facility, right? So it's an ecosystem game. So a corporate cannot be doing anything on their own. So what I talked about as an example was on the supplier and the rest of the think tanks, government agencies, and so on and so forth. And equal part is consumers. How do you really excite the consumers, right? I'll give you one example. Capgemini joined hands with a company called Hang Hiap. They are into plastic recycling. Based in Malaysia, they have about 28,000 suppliers from where they actually kind of collect the scrap plastic, convert that into a resin, and their primary customers are automotive manufacturers and other electronic manufacturers where plastic components are needed, right? Their challenge was the demand for their resin was going up. They were not able to do the right kind of collection from various consumers, etc. Because consumers double up as suppliers in the closed loop economy, isn't it? So what we did was an interesting, mobile app, but it actually kind of takes care of the entire collection process, makes it extremely seamless, extremely convenient for the end consumers. Not only that, we also introduced a very interesting gamification process through which you can earn points and redeem those points for purchasing something else and so on and so forth, right? So this is an interesting way or a concept with which we join hands to excite the consumers. So that is the other part of the challenge, right? So unless you excite the consumers and gain their trust, and that's another important one, right? The last point is about the trust and confidence that you build in your consumers. When I say, okay, when I go buy organic vegetables, honestly, I don't trust that yet, right? Of course, it's priced maybe 25%, 30% more. I don't trust that yet, because it's not very clear to me. So when a product is going to be certified as circular, okay, I think there has to be a kind of a trust that has to be created. Dr. Bronner's, I think, is a company that creates a lot of this, cleaning liquids, floor cleaning liquids, and they are into soaps, etc. They have been certified as, all their products are certified as circular by a competent authority, right? So that also again, improves the trust and confidence in the consumer. So to kind of summarize, I think it's not only the enterprises, it's about the challenges on the supplier side, challenges on the consumer side, challenges on the ecosystem side. How do you put the pieces of the puzzle together to make it work? Again, circular economy is not a single player game.
Okay. Staying on that, Sandeep, I wanted to ask you, I mean, we've spoken about these large companies, Shilpa asked about that, and MSMEs. I mean, how do we bring them into this whole?
I think it's very interesting. So I think MSMEs always think that will follow the large corporations. But I think in the circular economy, the world is changing faster. And I think the recommendations which Ananth had shared hold true for everyone. If you ask me, we should be leveraging technology and data as soon as possible. I think if you've not had that part of the agenda, we may be too late, because that's something which will really help us adopt to circular quite quickly. In fact, there was a study done by a big player which said that 20% reduction if we use data to redesign and also come up with things. The other thing is, it's also going to be business critical. Like ESG score is getting a critical measure in procurement. Before we realize, procurement will also put KPIs linked to circularity as part of the evaluation from a supplier perspective. The big thing is that being aware, getting organizational alignment, also making sure that how do we work, like Ananth was saying, the ecosystem, the designers, the academia, the startups, and adopting to what is best. There is a startup in the Nordics, H2 Steel, which uses hydrogen to generate steel, rather than going with the renewable the fossil fuels. They're using hydrogen, using electrolysis, and huge push from the government to promote such behaviors. So how do you quickly adopt to new technologies which are coming in to leverage for generating value and also maintaining value in the value chain?
Yeah, what you mentioned about using data, I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory of mine, but these health faucets, I won't mention the brand, but that little thing that you press for the water to come out, that I get the feeling it breaks easily. But when you have to replace it, you can't just replace that little thing. I suspect when I went to buy, then they tell you that you have to buy the whole thing, that whole gun or whatever you call it, and that's cost some 800 rupees. I suspect that little pressing thing may be a fraction of the cost of that. Obviously, it's not made in a modular way, and I don't know whether they. My conspiracy theory is they're doing it deliberately too. but
Sujit, you're not going to buy from them again ever after in your life, right? So that's the cost that they're paying.
Yeah, of course.
But Sujit, you'll be surprised. There are sort of companies or countries which promote the repair part much higher. So like if you pay a GST on your normal product and you go and get it repaired or get refurbishment, you pay a lesser tax. Okay. So by design, there is an incentive for you to reuse it till it normally breaks down. Okay. And then also, how do you recycle it back into the economy is something which is useful. So I think that there's a larger play here also. And like Ananth had mentioned, it's a big ecosystem. how do all stakeholders, government, consumers, and manufacturers work together to have a behavior change around this?
Okay.
Look, Sujit, just a very interesting anecdote that comes to my mind. Sandeep was talking about repair. You have this right to repair, regulation that is in effect, and none other than Apple had to kind of comply with that. So far, you could actually kind of go only back to that authorized store to do anything with your iPhone or Mac. Right?
This is in the US, is it?
This is just started, I think maybe a couple of months old. Now, as part of the right to repair, you as an owner, you can do whatever you want. Okay, now for that, they have opened up their genuine spare parts store to consumers like you and me. You can buy any part. You can either repair it yourself or take it to an independent mechanic, like the auto OEMs. The same problem, right? They want you to come back to their service center, but there are a lot of independent mechanics who are right at your doorstep, who can do it at a fraction of the cost, right? So this right to repair is going to kind of change the entire thought process as well, and that's going to me, I think that's another piece of the puzzle that's currently fitting into the circular economy, right? You allow the consumers, I'll figure out, when do I need to buy a new product? Okay, don't impose anything on me.
Okay. On the design side, to make it modular and all that, I mean, what do you advise to your clients and all that? What kind of technologies, what data and all they can use to redo their products, is it?
Yeah, see, modularity by design is more of a concept, right? Technology, of course, can help. I know, there is if I remember correct, a Netherlands-based company that has kind of created a very, very modular smartphone. So you can pretty much, kind of throw away the camera, put a new one. And if you want to increase the RAM, for example, you don't have to necessarily buy a new phone. Nowadays, upgrade of a phone is like especially amongst the millennials, my children for sure, they want to go for the next, upgrade, and they present a business case to me very often, right? But that apart, I think modularity by design is a concept. I think if that we promote to all the, enterprises that we work with, there are enough and more technology, support that can be provided, right? In terms of making that happen, because your manufacturing process is going to be slightly different because it's going to be modular. So the ERP systems may have to be slightly tweaked to ensure that modularity by design is infused in your IT systems. That's what we do for a living. You define the process, we'll ensure that the process are infused into the IT systems. So technology has all the capability. Technology is like a hammer finding, trying to find a good problem. So I think this is we have a solution. What's your problem? Right? I think that is the way we look at it, Sujit.
Shilpa?
Yeah, this question is from Shankar. Are there risks involved in circular economy since the entire model talks about sustainability and recycling?
Are there risks involved?
Yeah, very interesting question. Honestly, I've not really thought about the risks. The risk for the enterprise, as I talked about, if you don't embrace circular economy. See, first of all, sustainability as a larger concept. I think apart from your financial P&L, every company, you go to their website, they're talking about ESG P&L. I mean, now they are quantifying, right? It's about quantified presentation to the shareholders, to their customers, their own employees. So people are asking questions, hey, show me your ESG P&L. If I will probably go one level deeper, show me your circular economy P&L. Okay, as I told you, sustainability, you can always buy some carbon credits, offset, and then show a fantastic P&L. And as they say, in the finance world, P&L is an opinion, right? Cash is real. So likewise, probably circular economy is real. Okay, show me what you're doing in your entire life cycle of your product manufacturing with your suppliers, your own factory, with your consumers. So I think the risk to the enterprise is real that way. If they don't do this, may not feel the pinch today. I think it will be a very slow change, and then one fine morning, the company will be no more. And for the consumers and for the larger world, I think if we every time I kind of start putting something into the dustbin, I really kind of think twice. this kind of concept has opened my eyes as to what we could do internally within our own homes to ensure there is hardly anything that is kept outside in the lobby for the waste to be picked up, right? So I think the risks are real for both the enterprises as well as the globe at large. And apart from that, I can't think of any other transactional or tactical risks.
Yeah, and I think in the end, it's a model of production and consumption. Okay, and the tools we mentioned about sharing, leasing, reuse, refurbish, repair, or recycle. I think what we're trying to do is de-link, like I said, growth with resource depletion. And I think, again, treat it as an ecosystem. The risks are minimized because you're actually leveraging the end of life products as well. We just saw that the auto market was hit because there were no silicon chips available. In a circular economy, the impact would have been actually lower. So that's how I will put it.
Okay, let's a little more time. There's this question, interesting question from Samshri Holi asking, can the barter system play an important part in the circular economy, like in ancient India, she's saying? Is there anything like that emerging anywhere around the world that you heard of? Any platforms?
No,
I think all the, if you look at some of the e-commerce platforms and all, right, you bid for something, right? So let's say there is a product I want to sell. I mean, that's in a way, digitalized barter platform anyways, isn't it? Okay, so somebody wants to reuse my used phone, and that's a barter system in my view. Can that be a part of life in terms of enterprise selling something to the end consumers? That's questionable. I don't think you could do a bartering there, but the enterprises can still talk about product as a service or sharing. Can they create a platform for some product? For example, the oxygen concentrators. Right, I don't need that to be at my home 24/7. Could that be, I'm just giving that as an example. I hope none of us need to use that at all, right? But an equivalent product like that could be easily shared, right? But as part of that sharing platform, could be, there could be some kind of a bartering, thing that could come into play. And see, from a digital technology standpoint, all these things can be kind of easily implemented, and there are enough and more examples. Right, I think we need to find the right use case and opportunity to kind of deploy that at scale.
Okay. Have you heard of a platform which gives you total visibility into if I'm putting something in for recycling, where all it's gone, and finally what has happened to each of the parts and all that? Is there a platform? I know as group in SAP we wrote about it because so I know about it. That group was trying to put together a platform like this, and they've seen some success. I don't know, it's not properly commercialized yet, but are there things like that in the works?
There is, I think, one startup that I don't know, I don't remember the name. So when you, let us say you have a printer, there is in fact one lying right next to me, an old one, defunct. I'm trying to find out the right place to give it back. How do I ensure that it has been properly recycled, right? So that's where blockchain-based technology comes into play. Again, some of these parts have to be probably pre-fitted with a RFID kind of a thing, so that you clearly know that the life cycle or journey that it takes from the center that I go give it, from there on, what is the journey it is taking, and finally, where is it ending up? Right, so there is at least one startup that I know of in Europe that is working on this using a blockchain technology. As you know, blockchain basically make it irrefutable in terms of the data that kind of goes inside and sits in a decentralized database. Sandeep, any thoughts?
And Sujit, I mentioned about that German startup, which is on the textile side, where they track and trace direct from the cotton, which is at the farm, directly to the cloth. And there's a big traceability setup using blockchain.
Okay. Later on at recycling side, on that side, is there anything?
Yeah, till end of life. How does it get
really?
used? Yeah, full.
Okay. Shilpa, any questions? We are out of time, I think.
Yeah, we're out of time.
Yeah, just past 7. Yeah, I think questions are also done. Great. Thanks so much. Great discussion. Such an important subject. And yeah, I mean, what kind of planet are we going to leave behind for our kids? I mean, that is really the big question. A lot of big concerns. And like you said, there are actions that all of us can take as consumers, as companies, governments that can solve many of these problems. Hope we will all go in that direction. Thanks so much, Ananth. Thanks so much, Sandeep, for partnering with us and talking to us. Hope to see you again.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, Sujit and Shilpa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ananth. Thank you, Sandeep.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.